the live streaming. But he doesn't want to do them.
All good.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Barely used to go.
Okay.
It's going to be plenty of water.
Well, I've done mine one. Was mine okay?
Kia ora and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the council meeting of Tuesday, 11th of March 2025. This is an extraordinary council meeting where we are focused on approving the draft annual plan. In terms of health and safety, if the alarm sounds, please make your way to the nearest emergency exit. The assembly point is outside the building on Cameron Road or over 3rd Avenue. Please be aware that this meeting is being live streamed and the video will be publicly available on YouTube. Members, could you please remember to speak clearly into your microphones and only one speaker at a time for clarity, and please turn off your mobile phones. Thank you very much. I'd just like to pass over to Councillor Morris to give us a opening karakia.
Thank you, Mayor. He ino e tātou, feel free to sing along. He honore, he kororia ki te atua. He mangarongo ki te whenua. He whakaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa. Hanga e te atua he nākau hau. Ki roto ki tēnā mātou. Whakatongia te wairo tapu he awhina he tohutohu I a mātou. Hei ako hoki I ngā mahi mō tēnei rā. Amen.
Amen.
Kia ora, Councillor Morris. I ask for any apologies. It looks like we have a full contingent here. Thank you. I ask for any late items, if there is any late items. No late items. Confidential business to be transferred into the open. There is none that I'm aware. Change in the order of business. No change in the order of business. Only have one item of business. And is there any conflicts of interest? Conflicts of interest? No. Obviously, if there's any conflicts that come up, please let me know. So now we move on to our one item of business today, which is the draft budget and ratings policy for the annual plan consultation. And I ask Paul and Jim if there's anything you'd like to bring to our attention.
Just to introduce the paper briefly, really two parts to this paper. One is just confirming the rating level for the draft annual plan, which is proposed here at 12.5%, with the view that the staff will continue to work through placeholder savings to be included in future annual or long-term plans or wherever possible in terms of the final annual plan for this year. The other part of the paper is just confirmation around the level of rating by category. Jim's here to answer any questions. It's fair to say that there's a very large number of options that increase or decrease the residential versus commercial versus industrial. So this is to get clarification on that. Take any questions?
Thank you very much, Jim. And I just had a question. Oh, sorry. I just had a question around if you could just give us the percentages of residential, commercial and industrial that we've charged this year.
So this year, let's look at this on. In the 225 rating year.
Go to the other ones, Joe. Go and try the other one.
Sorry. The 224-225 rating year, when we set the resolution last year in April, and that was much earlier than usual, as the previous council were leaving. The percentage at that point was commercial 13.7%, industrial 20%, and residential 66.3% at that point. By the time we got to actually setting the rates in end of June, beginning of July, there was some changes due to a number of things that were happening in the community, a number of requests for non-rateable status. We had purchased some property that became non-rateable. So the DHB and the Education Board were looking for savings and looking for external leases that they had that we were charging the commercial tenant commercial rates, and they wanted to be non-rateable under the Act, which they were entitled to. So by the time we got to the actual assessment, the split was more like 13.3. No, it was actually about 13 point, similar at that point. And then we had the revaluation objections that we had to deal with. The end point from where we started off at the beginning in April to right now for this year is commercial 13.3%. Residential 66.4%. 66.1%, sorry. And industrial 20.2%. It's a little bit mixed up with the change to the definition as well. Sorry about this, but the after all of the objections in the industrial and the change to the definition, the starting point is 18.8% for industrial, 14.8% for the commercial, 66.4% for the residential. So that's the starting point, which is why I had that in the table for your options, saying this is the starting point after all of the changes that have happened since April last year. Now, of course, you can start at any point that you want. You have resolved to eventually get to 65% residential, and you've resolved to have a new definition for the industrial. So the starting point at which we move towards that for 2027-28 is really what you're here to do today. So that's the decision that we need from you today.
Okay, thank you. So just in this table on page, it's under 27, the status quo, which is 66.4, 14.8, and 18.8, that is where we started, or that is adding in an increase?
That's where we've started with the all of the changes, but there is an increase to the commercial at that point as well, moving towards the eventual. If we started off at 2.1 with the commercial last year, 2-point differential, and that was a decision by council because of the cost of living crisis at that point. That was the peak cost of living crisis. So the decision was not to move the commercial from the original 2.1 in that year, but to start moving towards that in the next years, towards 2027 and 28, and that's where that starting point comes from. It's starting to move the commercial, including the new rating units that have come in from the industrial, towards that point. So you can start it at a lower level if you wish than what's in the paper.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Councillor Scholar.
Sorry, I'm not clear. What does starting point mean? Is that what is being rated in the current year? What is starting
The current
point?
year we've got a differential of 2.1 and 2.6.
Status quo and the starting point.
The-
What is the starting point? Is
this-
it today or
this-
this year?
Yes, it's this year's rating information database of district valuation. No, it's this year's what we've got in the rating information database right now, with all of the changes that have happened since last April, and the change to the definition, so that today's paper starts off with last week's decisions on the change to the category definition, and the intention to move towards the 65% based on what's in the district valuation rule right now.
Councillor Crowther.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you clarify the actual differential rates for the, I don't know if it's preferred option, for the option that's listed in the resolution? So that's 66. Sorry, I should look. Yeah,
Resolution E.
yeah, 14.8 and 19.2.
14.8 and 19.2. Sorry, 14.8 and 19.2 would have a differential of commercial 2.25 and industrial 2.72.
Thank you very much.
Have we got any further questions? Yeah, Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mayor. Question, not Jim, sorry, but it does relate to the paper and some of the discussion about the rating requirement for the year. I'm trying to get a handle on what the forecast CapEx delivery is to the end of this current financial year, and how much delivery of CapEx we're forecasting next year. Are we forecasting for 100% of, and rating for 100% delivery of CapEx in the budget, or is it 80% or?
So this year, I'm just trying to remember the numbers from yesterday. I think I was looking at 476 million.
It was 487.
487 million. So that was around 90 to 95% of delivery. We are now, in the past we've had a capital project adjustment which has taken some of that out. That has been removed now. So it is fully rating for 100% delivery.
Okay. Supplementary mail. Have we ever reached 100% capital delivery? And what was the rationale for having a reduction in the rating requirement, or the logic behind having a reduction in the rating requirement, and not being at 100% funding of CapEx?
So to answer no, we haven't achieved 100%. The rationale for having that in there was that historically delivery has been around the 80% mark, and to limit and recognise that with an approach across the business to actually build our capacity to deliver over time, which is the reason for now removing that. And the capital program for next year is not that inconsistent with what the forecast is for this year now. So that's the reason for including that now.
So if we forecast capital program delivery of, say, 90%, or a high number in a good year, what would be the flow-on effect on the rating requirement number for this year if we didn't budget for 100% delivery?
It will depend on the projects that are in there. If they're all rate funded, it would be the interest component on any underspend for that period of time. Remembering that period of time might only be several months, not a full year. So it's hard to answer definitively. If it was a full year amount, then it would be the interest cost on that underspend.
Very roughly, would it be in the tens of millions or the millions?
It would be. No, it would not be in the tens of millions in terms of the interest component. It would be less.
It'd be in the millions.
Well, it could be in the millions if it was on that size program.
Yeah, I guess if you think about this year, we're approximately 20 million under at 5%. It's $1 million. So it's fairly insignificant, especially once you go out to, if you deliver it 3 months before, it's only,
The depreciation component of that, because it's not just the interest component. I mean, it's year one. I mean, if the building is open in, say, August, we're obviously depreciating that building a little bit more.
It would be the following year in terms of what that looked like.
Okay.
And the number wouldn't be that dissimilar to the
Okay.
number that Mayor mentioned in terms of, depending on what those assets were in terms of the life, it would be up to that $1 million again.
Okay. But I found you another million, Mayor.
Councillor Curran.
Paul, you mentioned building capacity. What sort of number would be in there in terms of building capacity to deliver?
We don't have a hard and fast number in terms of what that looks like, but we have worked on increasing the capacity of our capital spend with between 10 and 20% per annum, bearing in mind that it's also dependent on the type of projects, because that will impact on those numbers as well in terms of just the mix of projects that's delivered. So that's the guidance we've used.
Just a following on question about where we're going to head in terms of the number, whether it be 12.5 or 9.9. I'm heading sort of to the 9.9, and I'm looking at resolution C, and my desire would be to lock in the lower number and have a target to achieve that. And so I'd like to perhaps, I'm looking at removing the words there that the 9.8 be identified to apply to the final 2025-26 and the plan, take the other words out there to really aim for that result. If we chose to do that and was supported by the council, how would the consultation document look to take that approach but do it responsibly and in terms of seeking the support of the community to achieve that outcome, and then moving forward with that aim in place of a larger placeholder to really keep some tension on delivering some real savings in terms of operational cost. How could that be approached in a responsible, financially prudent way?
It's a very difficult question to answer, I think. At best, I think you could sum it up by 4 bullet points, which are largely unidentified savings across 4 types of categories. But look, at the end of the day, we will act under your directions. I guess what we provided you is what we think is an achievable goal of 12.5%. At this stage, we don't have any confidence that we could deliver you 9.9 in a manner that we can explain or make sense at the moment.
Councillor Crowther.
I guess I find the 9.8 million a bit of an unhelpful number. I think it would be helpful to have it as it depends on whether it's 2.5, 2.6, but say 8.25 million, whatever the the figure needs to be to show the difference between the two options. So that's sort of one thing, because I would like to think that we will go out with a fairly solid way of getting to 12.5, that we're not sort of building some of that into the 12.5 option. I don't actually think that's good. I think we need to dig into the OPEX to the point that we're comfortable we can get there if you guys can't be confident of getting to 12.5. In terms of the, speaking to Councillor Kurak, I think it'd be good to have an option which potentially could be worded as not just a binary on-off, but to sort of put the 9.9 as per our previous resolution, and to be as upfront and honest as we can be about it, but to actually indicate that this is a challenge and that there is a bit of a sliding scale there, and to try and get a sense from the community of what's more important to them. It doesn't mean we will act in any particular way. It just means we're being better informed, and we're actually providing what we said, which was two options. But I like the idea of the transparency, and I think if what you just said, Marty, is the reality of it, to actually just convey that out there, but to still put the option to sort of honour our commitment that I felt we made by sort of saying that, last year.
I guess I feel like we are honouring our commitment because we're saying we're trying to find the savings to get there. But like what we've found this year, and one of the big issues we've had, is because there was savings baked in to a salary item. We are now facing a six plus million hole that has been unable to be found. So we can put 9.8 million in there and create our own hole for ourselves, and if we don't achieve that, we put ourselves in a very tricky financial position. So I don't support that at all. Putting in a budget line item that we may find, I would much prefer to deal in certainty and deal in what we do know, and if we can deliver that, give rates relief to our people next year. But I think it's disingenuous going out to our community and saying, which one would you like? One of them we're going to be financially prudent, and the other one we're not. When I would not support that, even if our community came back to us and said we want the lower number. I just think we're putting ourselves in a place that I'm not comfortable, because we have said we're going to manage the finances prudently, and I just do not believe that is the prudent way to do it. We have seen directly the consequence of that this year, that salaries have been hidden effectively by putting in a figure that didn't exist, but we will find it, so we can artificially keep the rates where we want them. But look, let's be upfront. Let's be transparent to our people. This is the reality. We are going to try our best to do better for you, but that is very much where I want to go. So another question to Jim. I look at these rates increases, and I am concerned, and I am really concerned around the commercial and industrial. I 100% I agree with differentials, and I 100% back where we want to get to, which is residential ratepayers paying 65%. So I've got no issue with that. But what we have had is one of the weakest economies in the history of New Zealand over the past few years. We've got businesses struggling. We've hit them with, most businesses last year faced an increase between 50 and 100% in their rates bills, and that came on the back of valuations plus differentials being hit. And now we're proposing to hit the commercial ratepayers, the median commercial ratepayer, with another 18.2% increase. And that to me is, it's going to be, I think it's going to kill a lot of business. And why is business important? They provide the jobs, for our people. They provide the growth in our economy. So, I very much, I guess my question to Jim is, how can we ease this a little bit, to try to balance up these figures a little bit this year, and I don't want to go away from where we're going to, but I do want to give a little bit of relief this year to our businesses and support our economy in what is another tough year. And hopefully, as we've talked about here, we're gonna get these rates increases down in the next few years, and that would be, to me, let's say next year we can hit a number of 9%. I'd prefer to see the commercial get an impact, for example, 15% this year and 12% next year, rather than a 18% this year and then a 8 or 10% next year. So my question to Jim: how can we give a little bit of relief to that? So that we don't see, just smooth it out a little bit this year to try to support our businesses. Is that something we can do?
Oh, definitely. You can definitely choose to do that as a council. Thinking about the 65 decision, so to get to 35 for the commercial and industrial, one of the things you want to do first is work out where your end game is with the commercial and industrial. Was it 16-19 or is it 20-15? Once you've got that clear, then you can have an earlier starting point for the commercial. For example, at the moment it's 14.8. So that's close to 15. If you chose 15 as the end game, then you're actually already almost at it, and you could pare that back the way. And then you could choose to make up that difference either by the industrial, which are also have had quite large increases. If you're moving them towards 20, then they're already going to get some increases. If you want to moderate it and smooth out a bit, the residential have to pay a little bit more this time. But in the longer term, you're going to get to 65 over a next 3-year period, and that's an option that you could take to smooth the overall impact on each sector.
Councillor Morris.
Thank you. The best way, in my view, to protect commercial and industrial ratepayers is to look at the total rate take, because we're reallocating the chairs. But if we're taking money from the consumers that those businesses rely on, it's not helping them either. That being said, I love City Ops. I love the work that they do. I think they're great ambassadors for the city, and I can see a real strong value for money argument going forward there. With the increase in capability that we're getting with City Ops, has there been a commensurate reduction in contractor spend as we're resourcing up in-house? And also, not just City Ops, but as we've invested in the capability of our people, is there a commensurate reduction in consultant spend? Because we're upskilling our people, so don't need so many consultants. We're doing great work with City Ops, don't need as many contractors. Appreciate there's years that contracts are in, but are we seeing in this budget a commensurate drop in both consultants and contractors?
The answer, firstly, on City Ops is yes. We are seeing those contract costs come off, and with new staff coming on board to in-house that, and it's fair to say that there is in the 17 million of additional savings, there are those opportunities in there, and it's fair to say that in the further savings they will continue to be looked at to look to actually where we can actually bring that cost down by the correct mix of internal and external resource to get the best outcome there.
Councillor Kuro.
just following Councillor Morris's questions around city ops. So the plan is to further employ more people directly to bring it in-house. Has there been any thought into actually going to the market and allowing city ops to submit tenders in a competitive way with what the market can provide? Because potentially, you know, the current providers that are looking at losing the contracts could provide actually a very value for money bid, which might be quite significantly lower than what city ops bid would be.
The short answer is yes, but from the 1st of July we're bringing in 4 large contracts, so we need to embed those. So there are policies around what we can do and when we go out tendering for work, competition, those kind of things. So we're going to embed city ops, we're going to get this contract going, and then we will look for opportunities, but they will have to come back through you. As to what sort of opportunities we will look at. We've got lots of ideas, but in time. But I think we said when Greg did the presentation, the most important thing is to embed that business and have that running well. So I guess the short answer is yes, but not quite yet.
Right, well, have we got more questions about the annual plan? Councillor Crowther.
On the city ops, I'm just trying to get clear, why wasn't the 4.2 million for additional employee costs for city ops in FY26, why wasn't that part of the LTP numbers? Was there an unexpected increase in what you needed in terms of resourcing, or, you know, I'm just trying to figure out why that was sort of a bit of a surprise to us.
I think I understand your question. So we know that from the 1st of July that we need that amount of staff to operate the contracts we're bringing in-house. And the money that we will get from the various activities will pay for that, plus everything else we need. So when it comes to bringing staff on, you can't bring them on the 1st of July to mow lawns on the 2nd of July. So what we have done is over this year, there is some roles that have not been filled. So your head count at the end of this year will be higher because we'll be bringing them on a week or 2 weeks or a month earlier. But actual full-time equivalent units have already been factored into the budget of city operation and the overall numbers for this year.
If I can just add to that.
That makes sense.
If I can just add to that, we did an early LTP with the commissioners leaving, and the decision on the additional contract was made after that.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm just thinking. So through the chair, I'm just wanting to make sure we've got the sort of reconciliation for that area of the budget, and we've so a couple of areas of the budget. But are there any other significant factors like that? Because we found them obviously with CapEx. There are a number of things like Marine Precinct and so on, which were tens of millions of dollars that were put in after the LTP. And it would be helpful to kind of know, in terms of other what in the 3rd of March budget was just grouped under other expenditure. Are there big chunks of other things that kind of went through, just like city ops, just like Marine Precinct, you know, that went through after the LTP but before the end of, you know, of that term of the commissioners?
Well, I think we made a lot of a lot of those decisions around the city ops, but
we know some of that. I'm just thinking in terms of where, like, because I'm still not sure what's baked in there. I guess it's just to get a bit of transparency around that in terms of the reconciliation.
I guess my question, just to follow up on that, I'm assuming that there's a contra movement. So while we've got a $4.1 million increase in staff costs, there should be a contra movement of contractors of 4.1 million ish. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yep.
Fully offset.
Yep.
So to follow up on that then, why are we only seeing a $2 million saving overall compared to that's precisely what I'm trying to drive at, that with consultants, the total saving is $2 million. We've just heard $4 million just for that one item alone. We're also making cuts to it. I'm just trying to reconcile those numbers to try to figure out how they all piece together.
well, not consultants, they're contracts.
Contracts.
Yeah. So-
Well, is it under contracts or under consultants?
Well, we can probably identify the budget line where that's been journalled out, if you like, or replaced. So.
Other OPEX. It is in the other OPEX line, other operating expenditure.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to, if we can get that transparency.
Is the 2 million that you're referring to, is that the one we talked about when we did the transport conversation last week? Because that's transport only, where we're lowering the consultant's cost by about $2 million.
Through the chair, just to answer that question, I was meaning the total is 2. So I was kind of surprised there wasn't some other saving under the consultancy, because we've asked for cuts to consultancy. The transport was just the one little piece of it. I thought there might be savings across the organisation over and above that, but there are not. And I presume it's another one of these reconciliation things. We need to see that there are presumably some decisions the Commissioner's made or whatever happened that we're not aware of to keep that consultancy cost up so high.
Got this right, but some of the consultants will be for CapEx projects, so like in transport, so you won't see them in the OPEX line because they'll be capitalised into the project, so if they're not there we're spending less, but it's just not, so you won't see it as a comparative saving, but it is a saving in that it's not being capitalised and not being spent.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. It'd be really good to have the reconciliation kind of in the same way we got for the employee costs. Would be really helpful.
Councillor Scott.
Sorry, just one more point I wanted to make on the city ops costs of 4 and some millions. We are the part of the contracts that we're taking on board from the 1st of July this year. When we put the annual plan together, we were only meant to do them a year later. So why that is out compared to annual plan for the 25-26 year is that year as well. So when we signed Fulton Hogan up a few years ago, that was a term contract which was meant to expire on the last of June 26. We're now taking that in a year earlier because we think that we can do it better and better value for money. So we're terminating that early and taking that on board. So that's why there's probably a bigger difference than you would expect in those numbers too.
Thank you, Mima. Hey, so a couple of things on the city ops. We got a paper that we used as the basis of a decision to bring those contracts in-house. Could we get an update of that, please, with which includes the numbers we've got on these schedules, so that we are actually so can we have that including the same for next year as well? I think I don't know where, I can't remember when we got it, but that would be really good because that was what a decision was made on, and including the allocated costs that come into that as well, please. That's the first point. Secondly, just on the salary savings, we heard about this September, October last year, and I know it was a big number, it was 12 million, but as the CEO, you had a budget that you were working to, Marty. It had that 12 million in it, and I don't accept that it was, we talk about it now, that number was too big and it shouldn't have been that big. It was that number, and to me, a CEO is accountable for delivering on a budget. So I hear, Mahe, you're saying that the number was too big and we're working on it, but it's still a number, and I think we should be still saying, how do we make sure we use it all? And it's, for me, setting the CEO with that accountability for that was something the commissioners did, and I think that's still, to me, an accountability to meet that sort of salary savings, even if it seemed a large point at the time.
I completely agree, and I've given a commitment that we'll do our best to deliver those savings this financial year.
Right. And the third thing is, I don't want to go out necessarily and say there's another 9.8 unidentified savings, but we are wanting a change. We've said, we know we've got great staff, and we've said, why don't those great staff do the work that the 41 million that's currently being done by consultants? I want to see that consultant number not come down by 2 million. I want it to come down by 10 million. And I do think we can do it sooner rather than spread it out. We know we've got 120. Well, the report I've got says we had 121 vacancies at the end of January. I want to recognise, we say there is a review, we don't employ more people. I've got a report that also says we create new jobs quite often as well. I want to know that we're not doing that, because our people want to know that we're making a difference, that we're making a change. And at the moment, I'm not seeing the ability given to us to make some change, because there seems to be so much resistance to these other costs and this is what you've got. Our people need to see the costs come down, and we collectively around this table need to say, yes, let's bring those costs down. We don't want 18% increase for commercial rate holders. We do have to think differently. We do have to. So 9.8 to me, when you've got 121 vacancies, if they're on 100,000 and they are getting a 30% allocation in, we've beaten the 9.8, and that's not making any, there's no staff changes for the people that are here. The people I talk to are really good. They can do the work that consultants currently do. So I just think we're really wanting a change of culture. We have to make real difference. So whether the 9.8 is undefined, or we say it is actually made up of, we're going to review all nice to haves. I'm going to start at saying I don't want colour printing anymore. I heard someone say, oh, but that's done by we've got our own printing department, so it doesn't cost anything. Well, I hate to tell you, it does. We've got to start saying, let's do things differently. We can't just say, well, you know, we're going to try, but we're not going to get there. We've got to do things differently. So I'm not happy that we're just saying we're going to accept that we're going to try as hard as we like. I would like some specific things put in writing that we've got an aim of 9.8 million additional savings across consultancy, slowing down role replacement, a reviewable nice to haves, and actually have things against that we can say, yep, we did that, yep, we did that as well. And small steps make a difference. And I want to see little steps happening, and I want to see that culture right across the organisation.
Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Deputy Mayor, for that comment. I'm looking at the pre-election report and looking at year 2 of the LTP, 25-26, and it shows the total OPEX, if I'm reading the spreadsheet right, was forecast to be 490 million. That's including finance costs and other funding application. The draft annual plan as it's sitting at the moment, in 90% sort of format of completion, what's our OPEX number there that this council's looking at? So LTP, 490 million OPEX. What are we looking at? Elected council, 25, 26. Because it's higher, eh? I'm just trying to... Is it higher?
Just
Totally, because
looking that up. Yep.
Yeah, a bit of an anomaly.
Do you want it without depreciation?
Yeah, we might just need a little. It's just the Tauranga West calculations that are making it a little bit.
Without the exact numbers, apples with apples,
Well,
it's higher though, eh?
if we look at the rating level
So, yeah.
for the long-term plan, but I just need to check how it was expressed in the pre-election. Like the pre-election report would pick up the years of the long-term plan, so it should be consistent, but I'd just like to check that.
Thank you.
Have we got any other questions for staff? Yeah, Councillor Crowther.
Question for Jim. I guess the concern I have is that we, depending on what happens with the economy and with various sectors, we like the industrial commercial balance versus new growth and commercial. That's all a bit up in the air, and we saw that this year. What are the pros and cons of sort of, or what do other councils do in terms of setting a differential versus setting a percentage? Because my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that a lot of them set a differential and use that as sort of the base, and then maybe tweak the percentages if they want to, as opposed to what we're proposing to do, which is to set the percentages. Correct me if I've got that wrong there.
No, there is a mix of how councils do it, and you had those choices in the previous papers, and you could have chosen to go down the track of picking a differential each time. Hamilton sets a proportion, and that's similar to where you're looking at going 65-35. Auckland also set a proportion, and theirs is 69-31. Wellington is 60-40, so they set proportions in those councils, and that really is to moderate the impact of revaluation swings, so you don't have extreme movements in rates in the revaluation years, so that just keeps a consistent level of increase based on your budget and what you want to spend in the community. That's the reason for choosing allocation over directly picking a differential.
Thanks
So,
very
so
much.
that's the common way is to set the percentages rather than the differentials.
It seems to be in the metros, and perhaps not the same in the smaller regional councils.
Okay, no, that's really good feedback. Good question, Councillor Crowther. If there's no further questions for staff, we may have just, when we're playing around, we may need some more information, but thank you for now, and we'll come back to that. So I guess before we sort of look at resolutions, I'm just keen to get a bit of a gauge around the table, and we've already set that residential will be 65% from 27-28. So the question I have is around that industrial commercial. I guess my steer is I don't necessarily agree with it. But at the moment we need to try to keep certainty, and are happy to stick with it. And I think it's something we've discussed previously around the long-term plan. We can revisit it as to how we skin it and what we do with it, because I think that's a better time to have that discussion. We've also talked about targeted rates, etc. So I think just putting that out there that those sort of conversations we should have at a later date. But right now we're faced with trying to cut 35% up. How do we see that going? And I think Jim's given us a lot of information there about what that kind of impact potentially will have. So my steer very much is I think that we should go 20-15, 20 industrial, 15 commercial in the long term. But I think I think that's the number one decision today is which way are we going to cut it, or is it even 21-14? I'm not sure what that is, but I think that's our first question to answer, and then the second part of that is how do we get there? So let's set that number first. Councillor Taylor.
I agree with your comments on certainty, and this is the plan at the moment, so I would like to stick with those percentages. I think they've been foreshadowed, good word that we've learned, to the community, and they're probably expecting them. So That's the first thing. How we get to that point, without belittling the cost increases that the businesses will take on, in the scheme of their annual budget, the small tweaking we might be able to do on that particular item will be infinitesimal compared to the other things that they'll be looking at in their budget. And from my experience, rates isn't very high on the list of things that I would have been looking at to garner savings or to assess my costs. So, whether we increase it by 0.4% this year or nothing this year, I don't think it'll have a huge impact on the businesses out there. Could be wrong. I might get a bit of feedback to say that I'm out of line, but in the scheme of their total budget, I think it's a small amount.
What's your email address?
Councillor Carrack.
And the feedback you'll get, Councillor Taylor, is via the submission process, the consultation. So we can go out with this, we'll certainly hear back if there's an issue and we can adjust it later. This is a draft for consultation to hear from our community, and we'll certainly listen when we hear the feedback.
Councillor Morris.
Yeah, thanks for opening it up to discussion, Mayor, and without sort of turning it into a love fest. I do appreciate the, as a yellow, do appreciate the sentiment there for the commercial industrial ratepayers. From a pure economics perspective, it is a zero-sum game, because we're taking, if we're going harder in terms of the residential category, we're taking from the consumers that those businesses rely on. So it is really a zero-sum game there. But we've signalled it. It's been signalled for quite some time. If you look at the previous governors of the organisation, I think it's prudent through the annual plan that we continue in that. And we will, I think that's the great thing about submissions, is that you can pivot and you can respond. And I think there's a great willingness around the table to respond to the feedback that we get. And whilst we've been appointed to represent the community, I don't think anybody would say that we are, we're the holders of all knowledge in the community. So, yeah.
So sorry, can we just get a steer as to what how that 35% should be cut up? Whether it's 2015, 16, 19. Has anyone got any views on that, Councillor Crowther?
Yeah, I tend to agree with the Mayor on it in terms of out of the options, and sort of moving towards that 14.8, 19.2 seems a good step, I think, because you get a bit of a balance, more balance in the rates increase. I guess for me, my own view is still, and we sort of discussed it in the previous meeting, I would ultimately, when we get to the LTP, I'd still prefer we kind of reset it around the transport, the conversation based on the, I can't remember when it was, 2023 agenda item that got put forward to the commissioners. I think that had some good work in it, and it fleshed out what the difference is between commercial and industrial. And I'm personally not overly comfortable with a long, when I say this, I just want to be clear, I'm not making a long-term personal commitment to say that industrial and commercial should be treated differently. I think it should only be treated differently because of the sort of heavy freight impacts around transport. I don't see other reasons to treat it differently inherently. They're both just a bunch of businesses going about doing their thing, and they can write off GST and they can claim it as a business expense, so they've got an advantage over residential. But in terms of how to approach it now in an annual plan context, I think the option that Jim put forward with the 66, 14.8, 19.2 seems like we're heading in a good direction overall.
Where are we headed? What's your steer?
So meaning we go to the 65. What you said?
No.
65,
how do we
15,
cut the
20.
35 up?
Commercial industrial.
The 15,
20?
15, 20, and which means you could go with, in order to get there, I would say the 14.8, 19.2 seems to make sense to go there this year.
Or next year.
Or next year. Yeah.
Martin.
Councillor Roseboom.
Thanks, Mayor. No, I support the current recommendations as they are, moving towards 65, 15 and 20 by 27, 28, in response to how our wider people view rates. Our general resident population view rates as just another cost lumped on them. Our commercial and industrial sector see them as a full cost recovery business cost. That's all it is. We send them a bill and then they pass that bill directly on as a business cost to all their customers. It doesn't come out of their own personal pocket, it's a single loop. The same people pay the total rates regardless of how we give it to the people. It comes out of the businesses, pass it on to everyone else. How we allocate it so those who use the services pay the cost, that's where the difference comes from. Instead of it being a general lumped on the community as a whole, we, through the commercial industrial sector, pass that cost on to the community that use that service. So if you use that service, you pay the cost of that business. That's the difference in that. How we go about doing it, we've got to be very careful that we make our businesses commercially viable, because that's what provides our rate paying base. If they can't employ people, we don't have any rate payers. So we've got to be very careful how we treat our business commercial sector to make them commercially viable, that our changes in our rating base aren't too nasty. Last year was very unpleasant for lots of businesses, as we all heard, and we need to keep these changes very small and smooth so they can see them coming and they can adjust their budgets to suit. As a former business owner, it's not the change, it's the suddenness of the change that affects my business. If I know it's coming, I've got time to plan for it, it's less of an impact on my business. But no, support the current recommendation as is. Thank you.
No, I think we've got a pretty good steer that will be supported. That is 65, 15, 20. I think it's just around this year how that's cut up. I guess again, you know, to go back to the commercial, you know, at 14.8, they're just about there. You know, so while I'm happy to go out with that, I sort of wonder whether we could reduce that slightly to, you know, for example, 14.2, which would effectively put them in line with the industrial, and they'd have a 0.4 rise each of the next 2 years. I guess, you know, I'm just throwing that out there. That would obviously put 0.6 back onto the residential category, and you know, and then that's just trying to smooth it out a little bit. I understand Councillor Taylor's sentiment, and I do agree in some ways, but I think we also have to take into account most of these ratepayers had a between 50 and 100% rates rise last year. So while you know, yes, the difference between 14.8 and 14.2 is insignificant in itself when you add that to what they've already gone through. You know, I think just giving them every dollar, that's certainly what I'm hearing from a community, that people are really struggling, and every dollar does count. I also understand from, I absolutely agree with Councillor Roseboom. You know, this will just get passed on to our ratepayers. So, you know, whether our residential ratepayers pick up a little bit more in their rates bill, you know, and I acknowledge that they are also struggling. Everyone's struggling. So it's not, but you know, otherwise they're going to be paying it, you know, through the services that they use. And you know, I guess another little plug of going forward is those user contributions is the way to reduce our rates overall. You know, along that line that Councillor Roseboom is talking about is that you know you're paying for for the services that you use, and obviously rates is a direct cost to businesses and will be handed on, and you pay through it that way. So that's a good example. So that was just my my I guess suggestion is trying to smooth out that especially that commercial one this year, knowing and giving them that certainty of where their rates are going. Obviously it swings and roundabouts. We could hit them again this year with a bigger increase, and knowing that they're going to get smaller increases over the next 2 years. That stuff we can also go out to consultation, as Councillor Kurak has suggested, and see what their reaction is. But that would be my steer, and I'm not sure whether that would be supported. I don't see any issue with what we've got there, but it's just trying to smooth things out. Maybe I'm just wondering, are we able to just model that as to what that might look like?
On the residential.
Yeah, if we just switched, so we just went to 14.2 for the commercial and going to 66.6 on the residential, and we'll let Jim just play with that while we have any other discussions. Or Councillor Taylor.
Sorry, just another point. Just remind everybody that we did take a number of industrial ratepayers and put them into commercial, which has already meant that commercial has dropped a smidge. Not sure whether we do need to add to the residential ratepayers burden.
I just suppose it'd be worthwhile seeing the numbers, because obviously, 1 year spreading it over 58,000 ratepayers versus for commercial it's over 2.5, so it'd be worthwhile just for us to see today the impact of that right across. Like you said, everyone's paying for it ultimately, and I know we've got a strong view against, when we talk about rates, we often sort of ends up being it's a residential ratepayer is often forefront in our minds, but it'll be very good to see the number, the actual effect of it.
Just through the chair, estimate, if you reduced the commercial allocation to 14.3 roughly, so it's 0.5% less than what's in the recommendation, and that then could move up to the 15 that you've seemed to be looking towards in this before you made the resolution. And that gives you some space to move from 14.3 up to 15 over the next couple of years. The impact on the median residential would be about 12% as opposed to the 11.4 at the moment. The commercial would move to around 15%, which is less than the 18.3, and the industrial would be the same 16.4% increase. You would have 12, 15, 16 as a median, roughly.
Sorry, what was the...
No, industrial's 14.6, isn't it?
Industrial 15.
Oh, sorry.
I'm doing it in a 1.5% difference, sorry Mahi, but I could get more accurate if you want another.
Oh, sorry, no, that's 16.4, yeah?
16.4 industrial,
Yeah.
15 for commercial and 12 for median residential, so it's more of a flat line increase, but moving towards those percentages that you're looking at.
Yeah. Councillor Morris.
Yeah. And what would the numbers be under that scenario with a 10% total rates increase?
No, yeah.
Because we can change how it's allocated to make it fairer for people, but the best way in my view is to actually reduce the total number. But what would that look like?
I'll have to model that one.
Okay.
I'll model that one now.
Thank you. Because it may be that we come to a sweet and beautiful agreement somewhere. Maybe not.
Yeah, hearing those numbers, that sits most comfortably with me. In the fact, like Councillor Schuller pointed out, the increase to residential is less significant because it's spread out over a lot of people. but I think that does make a meaningful difference. 3% rates rise for a commercial business is significant. When we're affecting our residential ratepayers by about 0.6%. So, that would be my steer. But obviously, unless that's supported around the table, then then we could look to either put the resolution, which seems like as stands, which seems to be fairly well supported, or whether people are prepared to support a slight tweak.
Thank you, Ben. No, I am happy to support your tweak to the numbers. 14.3 to commercial and you say 14.3 or 2?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I think it was.
And 66.6 for residential.
Yeah, I think it was 66.5 and 13.3. Something.
Happy to support that.
Yeah. Sorry, Councillor Crowther and Councillor Curran.
I'll go first. No, I'd prefer Resolution E as it stands.
Yeah.
And seek feedback on that.
Could I ask if Jim can clarify?
Leave him alone. He's doing my numbers.
Yeah, after you finish, take your time. I'll go through the CFO then. So if Paul, when Jim has a moment, could you ask him to clarify the median residential rates increase that was proposed in the long-term plan for FY 2026 and the median commercial rates increase that was proposed under that and the median industrial proposed under that, because we have numbers here for status quo, but having seen other numbers, I'm just wondering if we can confirm if status quo refers to status quo as what went out in the plan, or whether that was status quo for some internal reconciliation that happened after the plan was signed off and before we came sort of along in the next financial year.
Sure. So the decision in the long-term plan didn't specify at that point what the industrial commercial movement in this year would be. So there was a resolution to move towards 65, 15, 20. But there was no median calculation for future years. You do that every year in the FIS, on the annual plan or the long-term plan, on the year that you're doing your budget, rather than extrapolating out to the full length of the plan.
So was just to be clear, was the status quo column here, would that have been something that was influenced by our initial thinking on this, or was this what you saw as, if people had just gone along with what you saw as a default, this was the default?
Yeah, pretty much that's what it was. With all of the other changes that happened from April last year till now, that's really just the starting point. That starting point is really just a starting point to look at, as you've discussed here. You can start at a different percentage for commercial, industrial, residential, and then move towards that final resolution with all the changes that have happened in the definition and the objections and everything else. So there's no definite starting point in this year. You can make that starting point. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's very good.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, if we can get the... Yeah, I think we might do that. Initially, I'll move the motion as stands with the 66.5 and 14.3. Obviously, Councillor Roseboom has seconded that. Obviously, we've had a lot of discussion around the table. What I have already said is fairly well covers the reason that I support this. I think this gives a fairer system across the board where everyone has more in line. We support the businesses that make up our economy. We don't significantly impact our residential ratepayers, and I think it's a fairly good balance across the board of what is fair, and obviously as we're going forward, we've got very clear signals of where this is going, and I very much support the differentials. I very much support where we're going. It's really just cutting up how we get there, and I'm more comfortable with this, having those increases smaller and defined and then stepped up as we go, rather than a little bit more of a big hit to one category this year. So that's my steer, but happy to hear other discussions around the table. Councillor Roseboom, you want to talk?
No, thank you, Mayor. No, I'm just happy to support this, and yes, the flatter we can make the rises gives us signals better to our industrial, commercial and industrial businesses that yes, we are very concerned and aware of how what we say here impacts their business. We've heard pretty clearly from our community that their focus is for us to improve infrastructure in Tauranga, roads and pipes, and build more houses. Unfortunately, that comes with a cost. Everyone's aware of that cost, and we just have to somehow balance providing the infrastructure that Tauranga needs to grow with the cost it has on the current rating base. It's a fine line we walk.
Nice. Councillor Taylor.
I agree with where we've ended up to with the split. I think the progression and the consistency with those percentages over the long term is the way to go. I'd also just like to point out the big move that we've made in getting to this point, covering our depreciation and moving towards a balanced budget. I think externally it's probably the most important thing we've done since we've been elected, that we're seen to be prudent, and we are moving to get our house in order as far as spending goes. So the 12.5%, well, it seems high. I think we need to take a look at the factors that would have made it closer to 20% to do some of the stuff we've done. So really important that we look at that rather than maybe some of the smaller stuff we've been concentrating on.
That's a very good point, Councillor Taylor, and obviously if anyone else wants to talk to it, we are very focused on this split of rates, but this is a wider approval of a draft annual plan and how we get there. So that point was very well made, and just to reiterate on that, we have taken a stance that we are going to be financially prudent. We were borrowing to live our everyday expenses, and this council said that is not acceptable. We have to get back to a balanced budget where every year we pay for the full cost of living, and that was about 25 million of depreciation that wasn't being funded, and that is a prime example of kicking the can down the road. So I'm very proud of our council all getting on board with that. And saying we're no longer going to kick that can down the road. We're going to have a big impact, and what that has meant is we have had to take $30 million out of this business just to be able to break even this year. So we're very aware of that rates impact, and I think going forward we hope that this is only the start of a journey. This is not a one-off. We're going to keep driving the efficiency and the cost of the business down, so that we can give more rates relief in years to come. Any other discussion?
Well said, Mayor.
Is this discussion or the motion, the full motion?
This is the full motion and discussion. Yeah.
Okay. In terms of the percentages, can you clarify what you said you're leaving the default? Is that what we're speaking to? Or is it
no? So it's at that 66.5 and 14.3.
So in terms of that issue, I guess I look at that status quo as the best indicator of what was planned in the long-term plan, and I think to actually go higher now with the residential increase to into the 12% area, to me that is too high. And to drop the commercial down to 15 seems a bit strange, because the option that staff put forward was to keep the commercial the same as per the plan. Well, 0.1% difference. So we had it pretty much with that split of 66 and what was it, 14.8. We had it pretty much spot on. And the irony is the only ones who were actually going to be worse off under the original than under the original plan were the industrial, partly because, as Councillor Taylor said, we shunted some across into commercial. So we haven't changed that. So the very people who'll be adversely affected by our decision today are the ones that we're not actually tweaking this for. So I don't support the red numbers there, which are the 66.5 and 14.3. I'd much prefer it be kept as 66, 14.8 and 19.2. In terms of the earlier part of the motion, I would much prefer to get more clarity around, and I don't know if this can be done through, if there's a willingness around the table just to amend the wording as opposed to put a formal amendment, but to have the placeholder savings differentiated, because as I said in an earlier part of the discussion, to actually imply that to get to less than the 12.5 we need 9.8, I think is a bit confusing and will be incredibly confusing to the public. I think we need that very clear, that the difference between those numbers, if you put it in the total rates take, you put it in the amount of difference between the rates take required, or you could put it as a percentage, but it'd be nice to have those add up so that we sort of say heading towards a 9.9% increase with a savings of 8.25 million, or whatever wording that captures that distinction, because the 9.8, we need, as I said before, we need some of that to be solid when we go out in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. I think we need, if what I hear around the table today is right, we need to be very confident we can hit that with no doubt, and then the extra savings comes in to try and reduce another 8 million. So I don't know if the Mayor is willing to look at rewording that part of it, because it leaves me very uncomfortable trying to support anything along these lines if it's worded like that.
So what are you trying to achieve?
Well, the 9.8, I think it's far too vague what we're talking about. We need to be very clear and specify point by point and say we need an additional, in order to get a 12.5% rates increase, we need an additional 1.6 or whatever the number is.
2.8 as in B1?
Yeah, like the B1, 12.5%, noting this includes up to 2.8, with that, because it implies there that includes 2.8, and then there's an additional 9.8 is needed for the 9.9% option. That's not the case, and the 9.9 is not mentioned there. If we're not referring to the 9.9, we're just leaving it hanging as to why we are going against our previous.
What's the 9.9? Oh, yeah, sorry, the 9.9 increase. Yeah.
Yeah. So we need to acknowledge what we agreed to do earlier, even if the majority around the table today decide not to support it. I'm just suggesting we need to actually make sense of it by actually relating it to those two numbers. So we need consistency between the 12.5%, how much extra you haven't found yet to get there, then you need the 9.9% option, and then how much is required to get there. And my understanding is that is 8.25 million or thereabouts.
It's 7.
Well, I don't believe so. We'll check the staff.
Okay, so 9.9, right, gets us from where we are today to 10%. 2.8 is still required in the 12.5 to get us to 12.5. So right now we're at 13.5-ish.
But through the chair of the finance team, like if you could provide clarity, it's not 7 million to get from 12.5 to 9.9, correct?
So 1% is $3.3 million. So that would be 8.2 million would be
would be the number to get to that.
Yep.
In terms of the 2.8, don't use the words up to in there because we're still looking to get some of that number down. We think that number will actually be less than that when we go out for the draft.
Yeah. But I guess my suggestion is to use the 8.2 million, not agrees that an additional placeholder savings of 9.8 agreed, but agrees that the additional placeholder savings of, and if you need to acknowledge the 9.8, say of 1.6 million to achieve the 12.5%, and the 8.2 million. We have to tease those apart, otherwise it's just going to get incredibly confusing for everyone. Trust me, I've had the feedback.
Councillor Correct.
Just to put on the table about an option to achieve a more of a stretch target, can I propose an amendment? And the amendment would be the C would change to, if we can just get it up there, sorry, I've just sort of written it out now. So C would be agrees to additional placeholder savings to achieve a 9.9% rate revenue increase, be identified to apply to the final 2025-2026 annual plan.
We discussed this last week.
So if I can just repeat that. So C is agrees to additional placeholder savings to achieve a 9.9% rate revenue increase, be identified to apply to the final 2025-2026 annual plan.
Councillor Taylor.
I don't want to
second it.
Diggers, but didn't we discuss this in Scotia's last week?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, we've got Councillor.
Question?
Yeah.
Sorry, just I think there's a number for the 10% in terms of the differential rating numbers. Can we have the answer to that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So if you had then decreased the budget by 8.3 million to get to the 10%, the median residential would be 9.4. So that would be from, this is the starting point of 14.3 commercial, 19.2 industrial, 66.5 residential. The median residential would be 9.4, the median commercial would be 12.1, and the median industrial would be 13.4. That's.
There you go, Mayor. Solve it for you.
Thank you. Okay, can we get... And I guess just to foreshadow, I'm happy to change the wording to make it clearer in C, but yeah, we'll deal with the amendment first.
Shall I speak to it while we're waiting for
Yes, yep.
So the Deputy Mayor's speech was music to my ears that I heard, to really push hard and aim for some operational savings. This is a means of putting it out to the community, and the wording is important about, the message we send. The message is, from my perspective, to really head for a stretch target, to really drive in deeply into the finances to find a possible means to deliver more savings from the organisation, but indicate to the community there is risk here, in terms of aiming for the 9.9, that potentially it might not be able to be delivered, but it's a stretch target to really drive for that efficiency and cost savings. The community could come back to us and say, well, we need more certainty, we'd be happy with a higher number and less of an increase potentially in the following year, but we don't know. But I think it's important to see the level of increase that our community is willing to accept, and going out with a lesser option seems a sensible way to go about it. So the wording is, as it is up there, agrees to additional placeholder savings. I'm not putting a number on it because it's just a little bit uncertain, but to achieve that 9.9% rate revenue increase. So we need, as a council, to sit around the table and decide on the wording and how we pitch this to the community. I'm certainly hoping that my fellow members would support it. It is an option. We'll go with two options, the 12.5 and the 9.5 in tandem, and seek feedback on that basis.
Just Councillor Curry, just the way that's read, it looks like that's saying we're definitely doing that. Is that wording how you want it? Because this is important. Yeah. You're talking about taking a change. So that wording, as I would read that, saying that says we're definitely doing that. We've had some previous discussions saying it's not possible. It's a stretch. So what you're asking us to support there is saying we're definitely doing that. Could you just maybe keep speaking?
Yeah, as an option. Sorry, as an option to the 12.5%. Would you like to see more wording in that?
Just the intent, I'm not quite clear with it.
I just think we're setting ourselves up for failure in the fact we're going to, if you're consulted on 9.9 or 12.5, which one are you going to choose? And then we're going to say, well, actually, we can't deliver that because what we've heard from the organisation is we think we can find these savings, but we can't find it by the time you approve this annual plan. That's what we've heard. So I absolutely agree, and I think the message has been sent very loud and clear that we want this saving, and we really, we're going to keep pushing, and we're going to keep pushing to get it. But we cannot, by June, promise this. And so going to our community again and saying, oh, we think we can get here, but we don't know how we're getting here, it fairly well, I just think we're just setting ourselves up for a fall, and that's, again, from a financial and prudent perspective, I'm not prepared to support that or do that. I want to speak in facts. We've heard we want transparency, we want accountability, and I'm not going to be accountable to delivering a saving that I right now cannot put my hand on my heart and say we can deliver that. What I can say is I can deliver you 12.5%, and I'm very confident that we can deliver that. So that's my take. But Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mayor. I do agree with you, and I think that it would be imprudent to have a $9.8 million placeholder in a budget when we don't know what that is or whether we're able to achieve it. I think imprudent is correct, and I think setting ourselves up to fail is also correct. But I want to tell your team what else is imprudent, and that is going out with a 12.5% rate rise when we haven't scrutinised and optimised every dollar within the big operational budget, $490 million. We've done a lot of scratching around the surface over the last few months, folks. But I think that we've got a duty to scrutinise and optimise every dollar that we take from the community. So where I would support Councillor Kurak is if there was a working group, and I'll get to that because I've made some notes just for the sake of brevity and not killing my colleagues with waffle. Thank you, Councillor Baker, for the advice the other day in December. I appreciate it. In the cost of living crisis and in a recession, which the Mayor has alluded to, many in our community, residential ratepayers, commercial ratepayers, industrial ratepayers, people who don't pay rates, people who pay rates through their rent, are suffering. That's fact. And our people expect us to scrutinise and optimise. And I want to acknowledge the hard work that the Tauranga City Council team, the staff, have put into the draft budget. But I think that we, as the team of 10 around this table, have to go further because we haven't yet properly examined the full $490 million budget or the levels of service that we provide. Last week's exercise where we were going through the savings was a step in the right direction in my view, but it barely made a dent. We debated $1.2 million in savings for an hour. I enjoyed it. But it was 0.25% of the budget that we're going out to our community with, when we should have been looking, and we must, in my view, look at the bigger picture. It was like a free sample on a wooden toothpick that you get from Countdown, when we actually need to be getting into the full course meal. We need to look at the main course, and we need to dive deeper, as the Deputy Mayor has said, and only then would my hope be that we'd have dessert coming, which is enough financial headroom to enable our submitters' aspirations in the annual plan. We've got to have some meaningful headroom in there to be able to respond to submissions. So before we go out there and put the begging bowl out for another 12.5% from our community in a cost of living crisis, we, the team of 10, we need to be absolutely certain that each and every dollar's been scrutinised and optimised. So I ask my colleagues respectfully, are you certain?
Nope.
Are you confident that we have done everything possible to find savings, not just around the edges, but from the budget as a whole, before we ask our community to pay more? Because personally, I'm not. And that's why I can't support the 12.5%, because I can't, as Mia said before, put my hand on my heart and stand up in front of our community during the annual plan consultation process and say to them that we haven't left any stone unturned, that we're confident that each and every dollar has been optimised and scrutinised. I can't. And when I look around the table these days, I've looked around the table for a while, and I reflect on the experience in life that each of you have and the experience in business that some of you have, I know that we as a team can do better. The extra funding for depreciation was a great start, and I applaud the Mayor for leading the charge on that, but I still think Tauranga deserves better from us. And that's why, if the motion fails, I will be proposing a different resolution whereby there's a working group, which includes the Mayor, the Deputy Mayor, the Chief Executive, the Chief Financial Officer, and 2 councillors are voluntold to spend the next 2 weeks identifying meaningful savings and trade-offs from the full budget. This is not about delay or mucking around, it's about doing our job as governors properly and not skimming the surface, team. So let's get it right for the people of Tauranga, not kick the value for money can down the road till June, as this resolution would do, or the next annual plan, or the next LTP. And we've got to make the changes now, because at the moment we're on track to blow those haunting predictions of the LTP in 2034. And I don't want to see us do that. At the moment, if you look at central government, Nicola Willis is outspending Grant Robertson in real terms. They have failed. The government has failed to cut costs. I don't want to see the team of 10 outspending the Commission. No way.
Kia ora, Steve.
Well said.
Is there any other discussion on the amendment at the moment? Yep, Councillor Scollin.
Well said to my colleague, Councillor Morris. I think it's interesting, and yes, I talked about not having colour printing as a way to change a culture. But you know why I can talk about colour printing? Because we actually get that cost, but we just haven't been provided with enough of that 490 million to be able to be confident that that can be increased by 12, or that's the increase to 12.5%. There's so much we're not provided with. One of my colleagues asked for a report on operating expenses so that we can get more informed and get more educated. And yes, we're new, we're coming into this new, but flip, we've got a bit of experience behind us. And my colleague was provided with a 4,900 line spreadsheet. That's just not fair. That's just suggesting we haven't got the right to know stuff. We need to be trusted with the numbers because we want to make a difference to the people of Tauranga. We respect what TCC is doing. We're seeing really good people presenting stuff. But part of our job, part of why we were brought here to this table, is to say, is it a lean, efficient, impressive, progressive machine that we're governing? And it may be, but you've got to share a bit more information so that we can know that, because like my colleague Councillor Morris, I don't know that. I'm not confident enough because we actually haven't had that detail. We're hearing issues that happen. We're hearing that, you know, and this is capital, but Cameron Road cost, what was it, how many, 60 million a kilometre, 40 million a kilometre? You know, these are numbers that we don't get to have a look at, and we need to. We look at the amount of gardens we're trying to mow and look at. We don't want a decreased level of service, but we do want to be able to say we've got a lean, efficient council, and that's enabling some other money to be found so we can get new sports fields. But we are looking at the edges because we haven't been shared the main course, and I very much would like to have the ability to look at those numbers so that I can go out when we're looking at the annual plan and actually say we are confident at the numbers that we have been, that we're talking about, and we're going to make differences going forward, but we're confident with where we are now, and right now I am not.
Right, thank you. If we've got any other discussion on this amendment, if not, I will put the amendment to the vote, and we're just talking about agrees to additional placehold savings to achieve a 9.9% rates revenue increase be applied to the final 25-26 annual plan. All those in favour? So we've got Kurak and Crowther. All those against?
No.
So that amendment has failed. We'll go back to the substantive. As I suggested, I am happy to try to wordsmith C to achieve oh, sorry, Paul is...
He'll be back, I think. Yeah.
All right.
What's the question?
Oh, I just interested to understand the 2.8 relation to the 9.8, because I guess we've noted that we've got a 2.8 million. Catherine, I'm not sure if this is something.
Here we go. Clarity?
Well, I think we want to know that the number's important.
Yeah, I think there was 1.3 of the saving in there, but I'll go back to the 24th report actually and double check now. Sorry, well,
yeah.
Pulls out because I'm not absolutely confident.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess what we'd just like to, probably. I think I'm getting you right that we basically want to show, and if we say we've got that one, sorry, we're still looking for 2.8 to get us to 12.5. what is the number that we need additional to get from the 12.5 to the 10 or 9.9?
So is it 10 or 9.9? Can we?
Well, it's under 10. It was under 10. So
could that number be added in there, the percentage?
yeah. Well, I think
yeah.
is like I think something like, you know, let's say 9.8 million is required to get us to a 9.9% increase. Councillor Crowther.
Just hopefully being helpful to, if I think the wording could be just noting that this, for B, could be noting this includes up to, and if it is 1.3 or whatever Catherine finds, and remove the word additional, so of placeholder budget savings, because the use of additional in two places is confusing, I think, and that's where we're trying to conflate the two. So I think if we just say 1.3 million of placeholder budget savings, or the final number, and then under C agrees to the additional placeholder savings of 8.2 million, which is the confirmed amount, I think to the nearest decimal point, required to get to the 9.9% rates increase. And I think that 9.9 should be put in, acknowledging the three previous agendas that we've had a less than 10 or a 9.9, which includes the last council meeting that we had on the 3rd. So I think those two things, it doesn't change the outcome, it just means that it's very clear as to what these numbers relate to.
Sorry, Paul, we're just trying to word.
Sorry, my bladder couldn't work.
We're just trying to wordsmith this, I guess, to make it very clear as to what we're doing. So we're just interested, like we've got that 2.8 million that gets us to the 12.5.
Yep.
And then we're trying to say on top of the 2.8, we would need another X amount.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. So the 2.8, which is up to a maximum and should be a lower number, will take us to 12.5. And I'm just checking with colleagues behind, but my understanding is 8.2 million of rate savings, 8.3 million of rate savings gets to 10.
Okay.
So the 9.8 is additional saving, but not necessarily all rate savings. So the number is 8.3 million of rate savings.
What does rate savings mean?
Well, not all, but correct. That's right. That's right.
So
just in terms of the consistency of the previous resolution, so your December the 9th resolution was that the total, the options, the total rates increase does not overall exceed 10%. So it wasn't. So
Not exceed, so 10's okay.
Yeah, that's how you had in that resolution. It was does not exceed 10. Does not exceed 10 is what you said.
Thank you.
10%.
Very confusing number.
Well,
That's what we had in the last two meetings.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question through the chair to Councillor Morris? Thanks you for your wonderful speech. Very impressive. What I was just getting clarity on when you're saying you won't support or you would. So obviously there's intent here to try and do better, and there's a discussion from the Mayor that we can lock in a certain amount and go out to the public with that, and still trying to say we're trying to do better, but we don't know that quantum, we don't know what that is, so a reluctance to say that's what we're doing. But from your perspective, that's not good enough?
Through the chair? Yeah, because I think it speaks to the Mayor's point about not having those specifics in the 9.8, and I think that's imprudent to do that. I have been tutuing on my phone with Perplexity and asking how to, what kind of resolution might capture the what I think is the very real need to have a working group on this. And if it suits me, I'm happy to read out where I've got to in my conversation.
I think we'll deal with this first. I think, I guess overall, look, I agree with the working group. We do need to get an annual plan out there, and I guess my steer in that is like this, as we've discussed before, this is a start of a process, and we've already taken $30 million out of the business just to get to this point, and I very much support some of the discussion. Again, it's the time and the process to get there, and I'm not confident even in 2 weeks that we would we would get down to achieving some of these things, but I think the intention is there, and as I've always said, this is always a starting point, and we have a journey to go on, but the outcome is that we have a lean, mean business. And probably just to qualify some of my comments, like I agree, we've got a very good team here, we've got great staff, but the problem, I believe, and why local government is so inefficient across the country, it's not something that is new to Tauranga. This is, most councils in the country are grappling with it, and I think it's a systematic problem, and we've actually we've almost got to break the system and change the processes, because that's how we're gonna find the efficiency, and so what I would just say to our staff is I very much encourage you, and we will back you if you can find better ways to do things, find efficient processes. We want to hear those. We will back you and we will support you. And as I've said before, we're also prepared. This is part of the problem, that councils will not take any risk. We're so risk adverse that we'll pay whatever it costs to avoid risk. And I think what we've got around this table is we want to do things differently, and we are prepared to take on risk at a reasonable premium, and it's a risk reward basis, I guess. If we're taking a huge amount of risk without saving any money, then there's no point in taking that risk. But if it does save us a lot of money, so while I very much support the direction that you're going, Councillor Morris, I think it is a process, and I think we've started that process, and very much happy to look at what that process does over the next few months.
Do you want to take a 5-minute adjournment?
Yeah, okay. We'll take a 5-minute adjournment. We'll try to tidy up B and C, and we'll come back at 11:55. Re-adjourn. Are we live streaming? Yep. Right. Right, welcome back everyone. Sorry that took a little bit longer than we expected. So we have just looked at some proposed changes to the resolution. In B1 we have changed the 2.8 to 1.3 and taken out the word additional before placeholder. In C you can see we've again just looked at some of the numbers. We've reduced the 9.8 down to 8.3 and put in the blue part for clarity. And then there's another additional in H, which is another addition to the motion. I, as mover, support the changes and the addition. Councillor Roseboom, are you comfortable with the changes and addition?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so that now becomes part of the substantive motion. Just a steer, because I think what we've heard around the table is we have different opinions potentially of E. So I will take that in parts. So we'll do the full resolution when it comes to the vote, and E will be a separate, that will be taken in a separate part. I just ask if there's any further discussion around this before we take this to the vote. Councillor Baker.
Yeah, just briefly, not to echo kōrero that's already been said, because I don't support exclusively having the red numbers as the options for E, but because we're going out to consult, can we provide both the options that are there currently with the rationale for the proposal, and then see what the residents, our people, have to say about those number changes? Because I hear what I believe it was Councillor Taylor and Councillor Morris had spoken to, and Crowther actually. It's our people that are impacted most by this, and as someone who's, I could imagine as someone who's passively involved in local body politics, would see that 0.5 or 0.6 or whatever it is change as just another massive hit to their pocket and privileging the commercial community, which is a pattern of behaviour that we see at a national level too. So yeah, I would like to see if we're comfortable then as to actually put out both options, otherwise I can't support exclusively supporting red.
Jim, have you got a comment on that as to around, I don't know, or just around consultation? Can we go out with different options, or?
You are quite to have a preferred option, but you can also provide alternative options. So you'd say whichever one got the majority vote is today, and then you could also disclose and said if it was by this amount different, here's what the flow-on consequences are, and we could model that and include it.
We could model and include it, but you would have to be able to find that amount of real money.
Yes, so you're just changing the percentages.
The percentages, yes, sorry.
Yeah, so yes, so you need a preferred model, preferred percentages for the purposes, and you can provide an alternative.
If you wish, at the moment the choices you've made are effectively the choices that were made in the long-term plan, so there's no need to consult, it's been consulted on. So it's if you wish to change it and consult on an alternative model to the long-term plan, then you may want to use that as a top in your consultation document.
So are those red numbers, is that a change?
No, that's in line with the long-term plan consultation that was done with the community, the 65, 15, 20, and a movement towards that. The red is the movement towards that you've made decisions on today, so there's no need to consult on that change. There's no change.
All right. Councillor Crowther.
Can I just seek some clarity on that through the chair to Jim? Because I thought what we heard before was that the number was currently 66.1. There was another option in there under status quo 66.4, And this would be a move in the opposite direction, I would have thought, from a residential ratepayer perspective.
Not from the perspective of the long-term plan decision, which was to move towards 65, 15, 20 over a period of years, with the expectation that council would set the pace of the movement up until 2027, 28, which is when it said status quo, it's the position that the DVR's in at the moment. And you could choose then to make any movement towards that 65, 15, 20. So there's no change from the long-term plan decision here, effectively.
Through the chair, just to be clear, it'd be a bit like if you're heading for Gretton, we're taking a step towards the mount, but we're still going to end up getting to Gretton. It's just we're going the long way by the mount.
That's it. Is there any further discussion? Yeah. Okay.
Just a point, because, sorry, has this been moved? No.
Yeah, it's been moved and seconded.
If we, the question is, could we put B separately as well as E?
Oh yeah, B.
Well, I want to vote against that one. But in speaking to it, yeah, I support the working group. I think it's a sensible option in terms of maintaining some real momentum on reducing costs. We might, or the group might identify savings that the organisation might not. So we need to definitely go down that track and give it our best shot. So I support it, and I think the wording in terms of the consultation document is fairly critical. The message we send to the community about where we're heading and our preferred option. And I think some of what you said, Mayor Mahe, around sharing risk, because something the working group might identify is around that. Perhaps taking a bit more risk to identify savings that are sensible. Well, I'm talking about sensible risk, and for us to indicate that, should the risk not work out, that we will walk down that path with the organisation with the community to accept that, hey, in this instance, we took a bit of risk, we want to save some money for the consumer, and sometimes it doesn't work out.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Taylor.
Sorry, did you actually talk about point H, which has been added?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, I must have missed that bit. Talking about E, just before we move on to that, I don't support the change to red. I think the original numbers are good. I think there was some mention before about even if we charge the commercial and industrial people, it'll end up back on the residential members of our community as well. I don't think the whole amount will end up back. We do export a lot of stuff, so a bit of that cost will flow overseas. So yeah, I'm happy to leave the original percentages when we get to that vote.
We'll take that in parts, and obviously we've got the option potentially of Councillor Baker's recommendation of consulting on both. So, yeah. Okay. Well, if that's the end of discussion, we'll take this in parts. So we'll take A, C, D, and F to H. And sorry, A, C, D. Sorry, the 12.5%. What do you mean?
Well, we're approving an annual plan, but there's not an annual plan. What's the OPEX we're approving, rateable OPEX we're approving?
37
number.
Oh, the
370
What's the number?
3 or 5.
Oh, I think
5, isn't it?
Tracy's got some numbers that we could include.
We're approving a budget, then we should know what it is.
Yeah, so on the 24th of March you will approve the consultation document and supporting documentation.
So this is approving a budget though?
This
The
is
annual plan?
this is approving
The draft
the
annual plan.
rating level,
Only the rating level, okay.
which is a function of
Yeah.
the operational expenditure take.
Okay, so now I ask all those in favour of A, C, D, F to H to say aye.
Aye.
Those against? That is carried, thanks. Now we will take B, which is approving the 12.5% rates rise, and I ask all those in favour. Aye. Those against? So Councillor Morris and Councillor Kurak are against, and Councillor Crowther are against. That is carried. Thank you. Now we will take E, and we will take it with the red numbers to start. Yeah. So obviously the if this passes, the red numbers would become our preferred option. And if not, they would become our secondary option. So, so red numbers, all those in favour, aye. So that's Councillor Roseboom, Mayor Drysdale and Deputy Mayor Schooler. Those against? Okay, that's everyone else. So I think we need to now take it with the black numbers, just so we do have a proper resolution. So now we will take it with the black numbers, and all those in favour. Those against, so that's just inverse. So that is carried, and the black numbers will become our preferred option with an additional option of the red numbers. Yeah.
So did we? That's not a. You've just added that. That's not a resolution. No, but it'll come back to you. But we haven't agreed around the table. We do want options, did we?
I'd be concerned that it's just another confusion.
Yeah, I think we need to discuss it.
Okay. Let's okay, so we've got. Yeah, do we need to have a? I don't know, Christine. Do we need to have a new resolution if we?
So we can either take just informal direction if it's supported for an alternative to come through as a consultation document, but if there's a difference of view, then it'd be good to get a clear steer because there is work to do to include it. You can do it, but it needs to be done to get onto an agenda for next Monday. So we're into days now.
All right, so do we need to have any discussion on an alternative, or shall we just get a steer around the table? So who would like to see two options for consultation?
personal view is I obviously supported the red numbers, but if we go out with 2, it will be confusing, and since the majority of the residential will outnumber the commercial and industrial voice, the residential will probably get the choice. So we'll just stick with it, and we'll wear the feedback as it comes in through the process of consultation.
Yeah, and then go from there.
Sorry, you had your hand up first. Just consistent.
Yeah, I normally support the Mayor's approach, but I think we've got a number of things that people are going to be factoring into this, and one of them is the ultimate endpoint of where the rates increase will be. So if we'd got to where there were 2 options of rates increase, I think that would have been a bit more solid, and I think it would just confuse. I agree with Councillor Taylor, probably add to the confusion, but do appreciate that. As a general rule, I think it's good to go out and ask people, but I think we've just got a lot with waters and everything else.
Yeah, no, that's fine, and I'm happy to take that steer. Obviously, with an annual plan, anyone can submit on anything. So if people are unhappy around the level of commercial, especially rates rises, then yeah, they should submit against that. So
it's important to consider that it is consistent with that signal to the community in the LTP process. We're moving in that direction. So, it hasn't been a major in terms of surprise that we're moving in that direction in terms of the extent of the step. So, for that reason alone, I think it doesn't require consultation.
Okay, great. Well, I think that's a good steer. We have got there. So I now think we have come to the end of the meeting, and I will ask, is Councillor Morris prepared to do another karakia, or we can...
do you want
just quick
do you want a 2-minute update on the consultation process?
Okay, yeah, we'll just hand over to Kaylee. She's going to give us a 2-minute update on the consultation process, and then...
Yeah, thank you.
Kia ora koutou. I will speak very quickly because I know that time is of the essence. Just to say next steps from here. So the team will madly be making the final edits to that consultation document. That will be sent to you tomorrow. It will go into your Stella packs. That will just be a Word document. We then have a session on Monday the 17th to gather all the feedback on that consultation document. At this point in time, we'll be sending the document to the designers, so it won't be a designed version, and there's a lot of work to get that to the actual printable point. So any feedback, if you do want to email anything through, please include everyone else so that there's consensus, I guess, because the difficulty we'll have is if we've got different directions, trying to incorporate that in a really short amount of time. After we've got that consultation document, aim is that is final for the 24th, then the summary document gets produced, and then any other collateral like presentations, the key messages, everything that we'll have ready for you for when you go out to engage. I'll send an email later today which has a summary of what you can expect, but I guess I just really want to highlight when you'll be seeing that consultation document and how you can feed into it.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Scholar.
Just thank you very much, Kaylee. If it's a Word document, can we just get it emailed? Because if it's in Stella, we can't change it. It makes it really hard. And just even to put comments on, it's much easier in Word.
I disagree. I'd rather have both.
Oh, we can have both, absolutely.
We can send 2 versions.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Kaylee. I'll hand back to Councillor Morris. He can... It's a closing karakia. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll channel Councillor Schuler yesterday, but I've got to say, e te atua awhina ki ropu mahi. Kia ora. So, bless the working group. And kia tātou katoa, te atawhai o tātou ariki a ihu karaiti me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhi na tahitanga ki te wairua tapu ake. Amen.
Thank you, everybody. I now declare the meeting closed at 12:43. Thank you very much.